Okay, I think the best way to kind of understand how PaintFX work are to strip out all the variables and then turn them back on one by one. So let's do that. I'm not even going to draw the brush on. I'm just going to attach it to a super basic curve, linear with 2 points, simple stroke. And then we're going to go generate, get brush. Let's just say default brush, and then generate attach brush to curves. All right. So here we have our default brush. So there's basically two big modes that you have in PaintFX. There's without tubes, which I'll show you in a second. I'll show you what tubes are in a second. And that's basically like an extrusion along a path. So you can make it, you can have the scale. So we'll just start making things more and more basic. So now the multiplier is set to 1. So we have our brush width. We can make it flat or round. This is how many points it samples on the underlying curve. You can add twist to it, right? So before the sweep mesh tool and the curve warp and mash, this was kind of a good way to create, like tube type stuff. So I'm just gonna set this. I'm gonna turn off the width. I'm just kind of turning off things one by one. I'm gonna turn off the twist rate. And instead of a paintbrush, we're going to make it a mesh. What else do I want to say? About shading or any of this stuff, we're going to go all the way down to tubes. I'm going to turn tubes on. So tubes per step is how many tubes are created on a given length of a path. And once again, we're going to just set that to 0. We're going to set random to 0. We're going to just have one start tube. All right. So, all of these things are kind of ranges, and the goal by default is to have a lot of variation. It's meant to be kind of naturalistic. So if I just start setting the same parameters for the min and the max, I'm going to kind of strip out all the variation to it. So maybe we'll make it 1 by 1, so it's a little easier to see. Elevation, 1, 1. Azimuth is like the spin. Turn that off. We'll talk about all of these. No twigs, no branches, no leaves. Okay, the behavior, we're not going to have any displacement, any forces, any turbulence, nothing. Okay, so everything has been turned off. Okay, set the width back to, okay, so let's look at the width for a second. So once tubes are on, the width is how far from the initial stroke are the tubes going to be created. So to kind of see how that works, let's just have a lot more tubes, right? And then the width then is, how far from the stroke they go. All right. Turn that back off to 0. The segments are how many segments are on this tube here, and the segments control a little bit like the behavior of them as well. So we'll just set this back to 10. Length, min and max, and like I said, this is a range, so as I add more tubes, right, it'll be everything from 0 to whatever these numbers are. It'll kind of randomize it in that range. Width, the width at the beginning, the width at the end. You can have randomness, bias. A lot of these, it's best to just kind of see, just play with it. So I was saying the azimuth is like the direction it's facing in when it starts, and it's everywhere from 0 to 360, right? Put those back. Turn these back on. Yeah, and the tube direction right now it's along the normal. It could, and you could dictate a normal if you want over in the stroke. Let's see what else. Okay, so this section here is where we start to get into different kinds of structures we can create with our brush. But before we do that, let's just skip down to behaviors. So what behaviors are going to do is along the tube, along whatever you constructed, you can add basically like a field to it, a displacement, and there's sine wave type things. Here, let's add some more segments so we can kind of see what's going on here. Right. Wiggle is like a sine wave. We can make it finer. We can put things through it, and you can see the origin doesn't move. It's kind of like a little, I don't know, a little fiber or a little hair or something. The way these work. I've seen them described as like a kind of a particle system that has like a mesh wrapped around it. So we'll turn that off. We can look at curl, which is like a spiral kind of thing, right? Kind of neat. What else? You can have it follow the original curve here we go. The original curve that drew it. If you want. Let's see, random, it's just more variation. You can have gravity affect it, which is, effective for having, plants. You can have it kind of be repelled by the ground with this deflection thing. Momentum, that's like that whole kind of particle thing again. The more momentum it has, the less it is responsive to all these forces. I don't know what the default was. Oh yeah, let's just set that to 1, I guess. The length, flexibility, it's like another, does it stretch? Do these forces make the length of the tube change? All right. Turbulence is a nice way of adding kind of animation. So you could have like a field of flowers, and if you want to make them look like they're kind of blowing in the wind, there's a bunch of kind of options for that. Spiral, I don't sure what that does. Bend. Good for like ferns and things like that. Occupation is like a whole nother kind of set of parameters where you can kind of have your tubes grow into open spaces. You can have them kind of not appear where other tubes appear, so to have like kind of coral or blood vessel type of things. I don't quite understand how they work, but I know that's what it's for. You can have kind of gaps and have like dotted lines um, or like yeah, like dotted lines or like breaks in your tubes and have kind of kind of movement through your tubes. Um, and then flow we looked at last thing, and this is what these are is like kind of animating everything that came before in one control. You can also animate within each of these parameters, right? All right, so let's see. So that's sort of the behavior. Let's stop there and then we'll look at branches in the next one.